Hi, this is JC Sum, and we are live. This is episode 5 of the Illusion Breakdown series. Glad you can join us. If you like, please do add any comments to the chat box, ask any questions, and I'll try to reply them as we go along. Today, we'll be talking about solo illusions. That's right. And solo illusions. Now, that's a tricky subject. So, a bit of background on myself. I've been doing illusions for a couple of years now. I've performed, of course, with assistants, dancers, equal partner, and now I've got two shows. One full show is a solo illusion show, which I do perform. So, it's a full 45-minute, could even do a 60-minute show, I guess. And I also have a separate show, which I can do with assistants or dancers. So, more of a traditional illusion show with traditional, illusionists and girl sort of illusions. But I started, working on a solo illusion show. I started conceptualizing it in 2012, and then I started to really, get it out and started performing in 2013. Process. I have always over the years, tried to design and think about solo illusions, but I thought about how to add maybe a solo illusion in the show, but not really to produce a full illusion show. Well, in this webinar, we're not going to talk about producing a full illusion show, but we're talking about adding solo illusions to your show. But I'll talk about my experience of producing, my own show, and maybe that can help you when you think about either adding solo illusions to your show or maybe even trying to create your own solo illusion show. Okay, so let's get started. Now, there are really two parts to performing solo illusions for your show. Now, the first part, of course, is the most natural when you think about solo illusions, and it's really looking for illusions or modifying illusions that you can perform solo. So you can either buy these illusions from builders, or you could modify existing illusions so that you can perform them solo. Usually this means either physically modifying illusions by, cutting components, maybe cutting hand holes so your hands can come out to activate some things. This is very common for some versions of the solo modern art or body twister illusion. Or you may need to have roller blinds or some kind of automated systems to release panels, open and close panels, or drop cloths, or allow cloths to open up for cover. But basically, you need to have physical modifications and alterations to illusions, either new illusions or existing illusions, so that you can perform them solo. This does take a bit of knack. You need to familiar with parts and what alterations can be made in order to do these changes. If not, you need to look for an experienced builder or designer to give you some ideas. Illusionists and magicians are very afraid to modify props that they buy. I guess I can understand it. You spend thousands of dollars to get a prop, and now you expect it to either cut a hole, or some people are even afraid to just drill a hole, add in a few screws or something. But if you want to make your illusions look different from what we call off the shelf or marketed illusions, which are very stock illusions, you have to be open and dare to modify illusions to make it different. And if you're taking an existing illusion and making it a solo illusion, well, all the more, any major physical alteration will make your illusion stand out and be different. So, don't be afraid. Okay, start off small. Okay, maybe you might want to add a latch, so you have to put in a wood screw, so you have to drill in a screw into the wood to secure a latch. So don't be afraid to do it. Of course, take all precautions, measure, calculate, know exactly where you want to do it. And you're really scared because you aren't familiar with tools, then look for someone who's handy with tools, and someone maybe who doesn't have that emotional attachment to the prop and is willing to just drill and cut a prop. Myself, I have no problem removing panels, cutting giant holes, transforming illusion. In fact, that is kind of a bit of my signature. I would buy off the shelf illusions or stock illusions, and I'll do drastic changes to them so that they look unique or they will work well specific to my needs. And for solo illusion, physical alterations, and as I said, having some kind of hardware components to be able to turn the illusions to a solo illusion requires these modifications. So that's the first part, looking for illusions that can allow you to perform them solo. So the next part, which is equally important, but not many magicians might think of this when they actually embark on performing a solo illusion, and that is to learn how to choreograph a solo illusion performance. Now, any performance, especially illusion performance, which requires you to physically move boxes, move panels, open panels, or do something, requires you to perform technical handlings or actions aside from actually presenting and performing the illusion. So you know how to choreograph your performance. It works well as a performance when you're performing illusion. So let me give you an example. If you're going to do a solo modern art, it requires you to open the door, get inside, close the door, bring your hands out, maybe take a knife to apparently slice yourself, and then shift half your body to apparently show yourself divided in half, and then after that, open up the doors to show that you have been cut in half. All this requires a lot of technical handling and choreography. And it's important to how you're going to perform these actions solo so that it looks nice within the context of a presentation. Because when you're working with an assistant or a partner or a dancer on stage, a lot of times the girl might be doing some of the actions while you are in front, pulling focus on yourself. Or maybe dancing in front, posing to draw attention to her while you do something such as open the doors, which is kind of a mundane activity. So you're performing solo, it's really just you and the prop. All attention is on you, which means everyone is burning and watching your actions. So it's not just about a matter of being deceptive. For example, if you are flicking a panel or pressing a button, that of course has to be done deceptively. And for stage illusion, that's pretty easy because you could use a larger action to cover a smaller action, or use your choreography of your presentation or performance to execute these secret deceptive actions. But I'm talking now about the actual movements to make it pleasant to the eye, to make it aesthetically pleasing. And I've talked about this before on previous webinars: economy of action, economy of motion. That means taking or using the least amount of action or time to perform any specific activity or action. So you want to have economy of action. You want to use as little time as possible to perform, let's say, opening a door and getting inside, because these generally are very mundane actions, but they're necessary to allow the illusion to be performed. But as far as the audience is concerned, there's really nothing exciting or interesting about these actions. These are just actions that you need to perform. Therefore, you need to figure out ways to make it aesthetically pleasing, executed very smoothly, and you need to find out how you can, do these actions while giving a performance at the same time. So this can be very tricky, especially for a solo illusionist, because you need to think about not just about the technical handling of the prop, secret actions, not just about showmanship, but now you need to think about, blending all these actions together to create a performance. So you need to have an illusion which you're going to perform solo. You need to spend as much time thinking about these actions and how to create a performance as a solo artist on stage with your prop, and not just about the technical execution or getting to the ta-da moment. So you really have to spend time thinking about this, and it does take time. So right, now this includes the secret, deceptive, secret actions, that mundane actions such as opening panels, going to a prop, stepping up, turning a crank, or pressing a button or whatever. Write down every single action. Maybe you want to note which are secret actions, which are actions that the audience should see, and how to get from point A to point B to point C, all the way to the end of the illusion. So you have to think about it and you have out. So, as I said, it does take time, but by listing out these things and making special notes, you figure out what you need to do and how you need to get it. And of course, then you would go through an evaluation process, such as filming your presentation or performance during rehearsal to see if everything is smooth and is interesting for the audience. So we've talked about two things. One is the physical illusion itself, whether it's modifications to the illusion or having illusion that can allow you to perform it solo. And the second, which is equally important, and that is thinking about the choreography, the presentation, and the performance of the solo illusion. Okay, before we talk about, actual types of illusions that can perform solo and you can add to your show, let me explain to you my approach to a solo illusion show. This may or may not apply, adding some solo illusions to show, but you do have assistants, you just, for the sake of variety in your show, or maybe your assistant is going to do a costume change, you want to do a solo illusion in your show. Or maybe you want to do a full illusion show. Regardless, let me share with you my approach, and maybe this sets you thinking. First, when I talk about a solo illusion approach, my philosophy or my thinking is really this illusion doesn't require a trained assistant or a dancer to perform the illusion with me. And that's how I define a solo illusion. The outward presentation or visible presentation to the audience without a girl or assistant. However, I do not eliminate the use of a stage crew or untrained assistant who I might use during the illusion. Okay, let me explain what I mean. So let's talk about the stage crew first. So to me, in a solo illusion show, when I'm performing the illusion solo, it doesn't mean that I'm doing everything myself in the entire context of the show. It doesn't mean I'm setting up the props on stage myself or pushing the props on the stage myself. Doesn't mean I'm controlling my own music, lighting, or special effects. I still have a show support crew or team who's helping me for the show itself. It's just that for the performance of the illusion, I don't have a dancer on the stage or a girl who I put in a box and I cut in half, or I put swords or whatever to make her disappear. I still have a show support crew. So a solo illusion show doesn't mean a completely solo show where you control everything. I know if you do smaller shows, let's say it's birthday parties, or even some stand-up shows, you might do everything yourself. You might have a sound control system or light control system, which you press a button, or you maybe have an assistant help control music, and you set up your own props. Your assistant brings out the props, so everything is completely self-contained. So maybe that's the exact word. My solo illusion show is self-contained in terms of the performance, but it's not self-contained in terms of the execution or running of the show. I still have a show support crew. So I personally think it's going to be very difficult to do an entire solo illusion show where you control everything. Where you have to manage all your props, do your sound, do your lights, and execute the show just one person. It's not impossible, because with devices out there, with software out there which allows you to automate your show, it is possible. But I mean, at least for the scale of show I do, it's going to be so stressful. There's so much on your plate. I'm better off really just hiring someone else so that I can concentrate on doing a good show. But depending on the scale of the show and the nature of the show you do, maybe you're just working a particular event or venue where it makes either financial sense or logistic sense for you to handle everything, and you've worked out software, gadgets, and devices to ensure that you can do everything, then that might work for you. But in most cases, I would say you wouldn't want to risk that. You wouldn't want to be in full control of everything, or have to be in full control of everything, because that really can be overwhelming, and I think it probably distract you from doing the best performance that you can. And remember, from the audience's perspective, they have no idea that you're controlling the show, and they don't really care, and nor should they. because as far as they're concerned, they're paying a ticket or they're coming to watch a show because they're expecting to see a performance delivered by you. So what they see is what they get as far as they're concerned. They don't care whether you have to be controlling the music by pressing a remote control in your pocket or with a toe switch, and at the same time you have to bring out your props and perform the illusion. They don't care. As far as the audience is concerned, they are there to be entertained by your illusion performance. So if your performance and presentation is marred because you're distracted by trying to run your own show from the logistic point of view, you're actually robbing the audience and you're doing them and yourself a disservice. So the approach to solo illusion show is not necessary to do the entire show, run the show solo, but is to be able to perform illusions solo without a trained assistant or a dancer. I mentioned an untrained assistant just now. Okay, what do I mean by this? So untrained assistant means I could technically have someone help me on stage, but who's not trained. Let me give you an example. Maybe you're doing an illusion where you're going to cut yourself in half and you need someone maybe just for a particular point in the routine to bring out a saw to you so that you can saw yourself and then you pass it off. Now, this person who helps you out during the performance technically can be an untrained assistant, meaning they don't have to be with you at all your rehearsals prior to the show. You could technically brief them, before the show during your technical rehearsal or your setup, and have them bring the saw out to you at a specific point. Now, you want to make sure that the cue that they have is very apparent. So you don't want to embed it in a music cue, for example, because they are unfamiliar with your music. It could be as simple as you're in a prop, you show your hands and you give a gesture, you clap your hands, or you do something like that. Something very obvious that you won't do during your context of your normal performance. It could be as simple as just putting out your hand off stage left or right, and doing a gesture. And this signals for the stagehand or this untrained assistant to bring out the saw to you, hand it to you, and walk off stage. So I'm open to that for a solo illusion show. Now, it's not great, it's not perfect, because you never know who you might be getting, you never know how they look physically. But if you really need to do it, I find this acceptable, because maybe there's no other way to be able to have this handed to you, or maybe you just don't have a contraption. It's not practical. You do need someone to actually physically bring out something for you. It's perfectly fine. The same goes with pushing out a prop when you need it, rather than you running off to the side of the stage to pull out the prop, or having the props already on stage from the start of the show. I think it's perfectly fine to have an untrained assistant, someone you can brief before the show to bring out to you when you need. Of course, you shouldn't have too many of these within the show, because it's going to complicate things. It can make it confusing. 2 or 3 times within the context of a show, I think it's require an untrained assistant to perform an action for you. Mind to bringing things onto stage. It could be an off-stage action. Maybe they're switching on a special effect like a smoke machine or pyrotechnic, or maybe pressing a remote control button to activate something for you, or to turn on a light. These are actions that an untrained assistant can perform for you off stage, even though they don't know your show. And again, this is with a briefing you give before the show. You can also have a very simple cue sheet, because there are 3 things they need to do during the show. You can have a cue sheet which labels it 1, 2, 3 very clearly. And I think it's easy enough for them to perform these actions without getting confused, especially, as I said, if you have very clear cue, whether it's a gesture, or it could be directly looking into the audience, into the stage wings, and asking them to bring it out. And if you have this scripted within your show so that it is very smooth and seems to be part of the show, it can flow very well. Let me give you an example in terms of giving a what we call audible. You might say something like, let's say you can cut yourself in half. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now I'm going to perform this illusion where I'm going to cut myself in half. It's going to be an impossible illusion, but I need the help of certain people. I need the help of that man over there. I need you to watch very carefully and put down your phone. That woman over there, I'd like you to take up your phone and dial 911 if anything goes wrong. And I need Bob from the stage to bring out my saw. Now, if you script something like that, it seems to flow very well. There's some jokes embedded inside, but it gives Bob, stagehand, very clear cues or very clear cue when to come out. And at the same time, it feels like a presentation. It doesn't feel odd why you're giving an audible for Bob to come out. So you could do one of these in the show. You could have a gesture for another routine that you need, or you could clap your hands. So just, make it very, you don't want to have all your cues and audible, but you can have one audible as I gave in this very simple explanation or demonstration. So it's perfectly fine to have an untrained assistant that you can just brief before your show, give a cue sheet, run it through 2 or 3 times. And I found that most stagehands are prepared to help you. They might get a bit nervous or excited because suddenly they have a very important part to be in the show. But bear in mind, and why I say that, there's a flip side. There's some stagehands who will now get nervous because they're always invisible to the audience. They're not supposed to be seen. So, once you have them come out, let's say with the saw, they can get very conscious. So you want to pick the right stagehand and if a particular cue will work for them. So that's my approach to a solo illusion show. I approach a solo illusion show, which means that I perform an illusion solo without the use of a trained assistant or a dancer, but I do not exclude having a show support team or untrained assistants or crew during the context of the show or the performance of the illusion. Okay, now let's go to discuss certain illusions. What sort of solo illusions can you add in your show? So I've broken them up into, I guess, different categories. And the first one is solo appearance illusions. That means you're going to make yourself appear on stage. And usually you need some kind of prop for this. And it's self-contained because you generally will make it happen. Or again, you could have an untrained assistant. For example, if you're doing a smoke chamber, where you have an empty, clear, that sits on stage and suddenly fills with smoke, and when the smoke clears, you appear. Now, in some smoke chambers, it's controlled by you in the secret load chamber, or sometimes there's a remote control which is controlled by an offstage stagehand who's untrained. So you appear alone without the need of any girls, covering doors or panels, but there's an untrained assistant involved. Maybe it depends how you design the illusion or how the illusion you have that is designed works for you. For example, in my solo illusion show, I have an illusion called shadow appearance, where I make myself appear from a clear platform, and I don't need any girls or trained assistants to help me for that illusion. So there are several of these illusions available in the market if you want to start the show with the magical appearance of illusionists, and I personally like that approach. You can do any number of illusions. There are self-contained production appearances, smoke chamber, my shadow appearance, which is available as a premium illusion plan. There's the elevator illusion, a flash cabinet, a modern cabinet, different options for you. And if you talk to professional illusion build options for you. Then we move to solo box illusions. So I defined a box illusion as a self-contained illusion where something happens. So in a traditional box illusion with a girl goes into a box, you put in swords or tubes, she disappears and she reappears. So that's my definition of a box illusion. Okay, it's not my definition, but that's a general accepted definition, the box illusion. So you can find self-contained box illusions that you can perform solo, or you can modify existing illusions. I mentioned illusions like the modern art and the body twister. These can be modified so that they are solo, or they can be performed solo. And again, you can look for ready-made ones that are in the market, or you can talk to illusion builders who might sell versions like that. There are quite a few on the market. I mentioned Ed Alonso's hit. Well, he did a hit twister, and Franz Ferrari had it as their body twister. The Princess Andre Cole squeeze box that can be performed solo. David Copperfield does solo. Although he does have stagehands who rotate the prop around. And you could have untrained assistants to do that in a pinch for your show. uh, Matteoli, he has a illusion show as well. He performs a solo illusion show with many different solo illusions, and he's marketed some as well. So check this out. One of it is called Shrinkomatic, where you actually make yourself vanish. Tim Cloutier, he's got several illusions which can be performed solo. He's got a, kind of a mechanical self-cutting, which is illusion, which is really big. But he's also got a solo head twist illusion, which looks really cool as well. So think about various illusions. These can be illusions where you go into a box and you make yourself disappear. And think about, let's say, a, okay, a Proteus cabinet, which is a cabinet where you can make something appear or disappear, which uses some deception. Okay, I won't go into the exact method in this free webinar, but you can check it out. Think about it. In this case, you can go into the cabinet, and you need to have some way to mechanically open and close the doors, or have a roller blind which can go up and down, and you activate the secret panels, and you can reopen the doors, and you have apparently vanished. So you can perform a self-vanish using a prop like that, if you find out a way how you can gimmick, let's say, panels. And one simple example of gimmicking a door, instead of having a door open and close, think of having a roller blind mounted at the top of the prop. Now, roller blind is a device with a shade where you can pull it down, and if you let go, it retracts. You will have to take out the spring catches at the ends of the roller blind. You have to actually pry open the cap of the roller blind and look for the spring catch. Now, the spring catch actually locks the roller blind open when you pull it open. So you need to remove this in order for the roller blind to or spring close freely. So you need to remove the spring catches of roller blind, mount the roller blind at the top of your prop, and attach some kind of rope or cord to the bottom of the roller blind so that you can pull it down yourself, and if you release it, it opens up. This is a very, very crude explanation of example, but it's really just an approach of how you can have a box to be closed and open by you controlling everything without, let's say, a girl coming out to close a panel or open a panel. Talking about solo box illusions, let's move on to solo penetration illusions. Now, there are many illusions which can be performed solo, and I think it's probably one of the easier illusions that can be gimmicked or built or designed for one performer to perform. Now, there are big versions where you walk through mirrors or steel plates, and there are also smaller ones where you walk through smaller steel plates or walk through rods, walk through ropes, do a bit of research, and you can find solo walking through illusions. A great thing about a lot of these illusions, they pack small as well, and you can easily bring them onto stage and perform them, yourself, or even with a spectator who maybe examines something, or they're holding onto ends of the rope. Different versions out there, so check them out. Guillotine style effects. And that's another thing with solo illusions. You can perform them not just by yourself, but you could get an audience member to come on stage. So now you do have two people on stage, but one is an untrained assistant. It's in the form of an audience member. And a great example would be the standard French guillotine, or the Leicester Lake headed guillotine. The spectator comes on, gets into the prop, and you apparently cut the head off, or you penetrate, you pass a blade through the head. So solo illusions do not have to be confined to just you on stage. You can spice things up by having audience members on stage as well. And that really goes to solo levitations or suspensions, because many of these suspensions or levitations can be performed with an audience member, such as the Walter ladder levitation, or a chair suspension, or even a super X. You modify it. Jim Steinmeier has an illusion in device illusions called hot air, which is a suspension effect of the kit, which you can perform solo. So have a look around. You will find several suspension or levitation illusions that can be performed with an audience member. Yoganas or Yogano's bars to levitation as an example. There are also certain box illusions or floating box illusions, such as the This End Up by Dan Wolf's Smoky Mountain Magic. You can actually get into a box that's similar to Andre Cole's No Feet illusion, but you can perform it solo. So all these are examples that you can add to your show, that whether it's a solo appearance, a box illusion, a penetration illusion, or a levitation or suspension illusion. So if you're thinking about adding solo illusions to your show, think not just about the physical illusions they can add to the show, choreograph and actually presented illusions with just yourself, or maybe at one point where an untrained assistant might help you by coming off stage to on stage to help pass you a prop. But you need to think about the choreography so that the routine of the presentation does not look cumbersome. You never want the audience to think that your show is handicapped solo. In fact, they shouldn't even think about it. I do believe when people watch my full illusion show, it never even crosses their mind that, oh, there isn't a girl, a pretty girl that's cutting half. He's doing all the illusions himself. That never crosses their mind. The show just flows naturally, and it should never be thought of as a handicap that you're performing the show solo. In fact, there are many benefits of performing a solo illusion or solo illusion show, because all the focus is on you. You can command the attention of the audience. There's no distraction from a girl. And in fact, a lot of illusionists, they have a girl in the show simply because they need to have the girl to cut her in half. So that's not always the strongest reason to have a girl in the show. Now, you have a girl who's an equal partner or strong assistant who has a character and plays well with a dynamic with your character on stage. That's good. That's a good reason. And therefore, when you perform illusions together or with her, that makes sense. But many illusionists do perform illusions with girls for the sake of having girl, because they need to have the girl. So in a solo illusion show, if you're performing a solo illusion, it forces you to think how you can convey your personality or your presence. A final word I'd like to talk about solo illusions or solo illusion show is that your performance style, your character, your presence, and your showmanship is really important. Because you don't have a supporting on-stage cast, so all the focus is on you. So while the focus is on you, and that's great for you and for the show, you need to ensure that you have that personality and the performance ability to command the stage and to entertain the audience. So you do have to work harder in terms of trying to exude that showmanship or that that case. This does come with experience, and I would advise you, work as I did. I think that's been very helpful in my career. I've worked as a solo stand-up artist. I worked with dancers, assistants, equal partner, now solo again, at times with assistants. But because I've worked, different variations of different shows, helped me be adaptable, but it's also built my own personality as a stage performer. And I know how to perform the show solo with myself, but also with an assistant or equal partner. So I know how to share the stage time, know when to give up focus when necessary, know how to give strength to my own performing character, but give strength attention to my assistant on stage at the same time, so that she doesn't feel just like an accessory on stage, but she feels like an equal partner during the performance of the illusion. So all this is very important when it comes to the performance of an illusion. So it's not really just about the performance, the character, the presentation, and of course the entertainment value that you deliver to your audience. Well, that's it for the discussion on solo illusions. If you're interested really in much more in-depth thinking of approaching solo illusions, and you'd like to see my show and how I break down my show, you can check out my product, which is called Project 1. It's got video as well as a companion manual, which really discusses more in depth, in great detail, of what I've touched on today. Well, there you have it. Great to see you here once again. My name is